This past Saturday night, Ryan Bader defeated Fedor Emelianenko in the main event at Bellator 290. Ooh, almost said UFC. Which was featured on CBS. Immediately afterward, Emelianenko laid down the gloves and retired from the sport. He was surrounded by many MMA legends who entered the cage afterwards to congratulate him on a legendary career. Though the fight itself was very one-sided, that loss was a small blip compared to the proper send-off given to the last emperor. What did you think of Fedor's final fight and his farewell to the sport? All right, leading things off, Nolan King.
Yeah, I mean, there's no happy endings in this sport. I think we've kind of realized that by now. With Fedor, that was no different. I mean, going in there against Ryan Bader is a fight. He's not just fighting a young guy. He's not just fighting a guy that's still been around in the division, that's hanging up there. He's fighting the champion. This was a title shot for him. It was what he wanted. And what better way to honor a legend than put him in the matchup that he wants? I think that's the thing that people that are criticizing the matchmaking from Bellator's point of view are forgetting about. That this was a fight that Bellator gave him all sorts of options that they were interested in, that they wanted. And actually, from before Fedor even fought Tim Johnson, he laid this out for them. He said, I want Tim Johnson because Tim Johnson at the time was, number 1 or number 2 contender. I want to get a title fight against Ryan Bader. I want that rematch. I want to avenge the loss. So for a guy like Fedor, sure, I understand when you see it on paper, you see, all right, champion Ryan Bader, a guy that's still got pretty, solid amount left in the tank, it seems. And then you've got, Fedor, kind of an older, retiring veteran that did not do well against Ryan Bader the first time. I understand why people would get kind of turned off by that. But again, he's done so much in this sport. He had a freaking phenomenal career. Even if you don't think that he's the GOAT, he's right up there. So I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. So I think he should have been able to be able to have that opportunity to pick his final fight. And the way that Bellator did it with the legends, I thought was fantastic. I mean, we need more of that in the sport, kind of honoring the history. I know a lot of people have been saying that recently and leading up to this. I think this was a great way to do it, to see some of those faces that we don't usually get to see, the Josh Barnett's, the Mark Colemans, Chuck Liddell, Rampage, Renzo Gracie. That was just phenomenal. I think it was a very special moment. And I think Fedor really appreciated it too. You could tell in there looking at his face. He doesn't throw many expressions around. He's a hard guy to read. I mean, that's why we love him. But you could tell in that moment that he really did care about what was going on and really did appreciate it.
Yeah, and there was former foes. There were people from his weight class, other weight classes, other promotions, different eras. It gave me chills, man. Now, someone who didn't feel the same way or didn't feel like the night was as special, UFC President Dana White, which probably shouldn't come as a shock. It's just that I thought those feelings were from a long time ago. Here's what he said, guys. I don't want to shit on the guy. He's retiring and all that stuff. But, the old interviews with me, I never thought Fedor was that good. I mean, he got knocked out by middleweight Dan Henderson. I think some of the guys in the business, people liked him, so they praised him. He never got to test himself over here. I never was one of the guys that thought he was one of the greatest of all time. Danny, what do you think of this?
I think it's absurd. I think these comments are absurd. And look, I get the promoter talk, right? But like, this guy's retiring and he's 46. It's not like he's going to go somewhere else and, fight for a competitor. He's done. He's done with the sport. So why not say a few nice words about him? And you don't have to say, hey, he's the greatest heavyweight of all time. And you don't have to go above and beyond, but you also don't have to take shots at him, right? Clearly, Fedor Emelianenko is a historic talent. I mean, he beat how many UFC champions? 4 or 5, Mark Coleman, Frank Mir, Big Nog, missing someone, Andrei Arlovsky. I mean, the list goes on, right? So, I mean, having a few nice words to say on the way out for Fedor Emelianenko. Again, he doesn't have to put him over and do a crazy rant, but come on, Dana, he is one of the greatest of all time. He's by far the greatest heavyweight of all time. He's a legend, a very important figure in the sport. You literally cannot talk about the history of MMA without mentioning Fedor Emelianenko. I mean, if you leave him out, you're leaving out a huge chunk of the history of this sport. So, a little bit surprised to hear Dana say that, but at the same time, I'm not. But yes, all those comments are absurd. Clearly, Fedor, historic, has done many great things and leaves the sport as a legend, no doubt.
Yeah, he beat 11 major title holders. 8 of them were former UFC champs. 6 of them were from the heavyweight division. So it's almost like an indirect shot at your own talent. But Danny, I got to push back. By far, he's the greatest heavyweight ever. I mean, I know it's subjective, and when we make these arguments, you stand by your guy. But by far, like he smashes Miocic, and wow,
by far. Look, there's a conversation. I feel like people mix this up, and I've brought this up in previous episodes of SBC. But there's a difference between the best and the greatest. The best, we're just measuring skill. The greatest, we're measuring resume, we're measuring career, we're measuring achievement. As the sport progresses, the best is for the most part going to be the most up-to-date recent champion for the most part. So is Cain Velasquez better than Fedor if you put them both in their prime? Yes, probably. But if we're talking about resume, if we're talking about achievement, I mean, the win streak that guy went on, just unbeaten for years and years and years, literally fighting the very best talent that was available at the time. No one has ever done that. I think the best is probably Cain, but his prime was so short, full of injuries, that we didn't really get to see that much achievement because he was so much, on the shelf. But as far as achievement, no one has achieved what Fedor has in the heavyweight division. Fedor is the king of the heavyweights, period. It's going to be a long time, and it's going to be a lot of work for somebody to surpass his body of work.
31 fights, almost 10 years without a loss. That is crazy. Goes, you were in the arena with me. We had goosebumps.
Oh, totally. I mean, the whole arena. That's the thing, is if you're watching it on TV, there were times where you would hear the USA chant and all that, and you would think there was a large crowd there cheering for Ryan Bader. That wasn't the case. Most people in that arena were cheering for Fedor Emelianenko. The flags were out. Everybody stood up. They didn't need to be told what to do. This dude has just had such a crazy career and such an effect on so many people. It's amazing. And I think Bellator, you have to tip your hat to those guys. They did everything right. Location was perfect. The promotion for the fight. And then, the big guns that came out to celebrate with Fedor. I mean, you don't really see that too often. What's really cool is you do kind of see that in some of the other sports, right? I mean, you see the camaraderie, even when you put Larry Bird and Magic Johnson in the same room, like they're shaking hands, they're talking about what they went through. And I don't know if that people really understand some of the struggles that Fedor did go through in his career. Things didn't end the way that he probably wanted, but at the end of the day, I think he can look back and be happy at the effect that he's had on our sport, on so many different generations. And, you listen to Dana White's comments and they're silly because think about this, man. How many times did we hear this person came to the PI to meet with Dana White? This person's in town to meet with Dana White. Well, guess what, Dana White? You went to visit him on an island. You came to him. He didn't have to go to the UFC. Your fighters came to him. The UFC came to him. He defeated a lot of your champions. So really, this was just a moment for him to kind of tip his cap and just say, hey, man, bravo, good career. It didn't work out with us, but, that's just kind of a silly remark to end for him.
It's like second place in Miss Universe, not clapping for the winner. It's just like, dang, whatever.